With me, hi, hello. My name is George Wright. My pronouns are he, him, and I'm the head of social media here at myGwork. Hello, Cassandra from London. Hello, loving it. Everyone else in here, I'm seeing a couple of people here, and I want to see more hellos. But yes, so I said, if you're not familiar with myGwork, that's perfectly fine. We're an LGBTQ plus business community for professionals, graduates, students, and anyone really that believes in workplace equality. You can sign up over on our platform at myGwork.com and access many great events, such as this one, as well as news, community initiatives like our jobs fair, work fair yesterday, work pride in Pride Month, and so many other great opportunities for you to check out. If you aren't already, do get in touch with us as well via social media. Hello, Marius from Spain, loving it. Right, so here we are. Welcome back to Discover What It's Like to Work At. This is a great opportunity to sit down and have a conversation with real people that work real jobs at companies and to find out more about the amazing work they're doing and what it means to be LGBTQ plus in the organizations that they are working for. I'm joined by Jack, Irini, and Keshav from AB inBev today. And I guess we might as well get straight into it. And if I can come to you first, Jack, would you mind just introducing yourself and telling us a little bit more about your role at AB inBev?
Yeah, absolutely. So hi, everyone. My name's Jack. My pronouns are he, him. And currently I work in our UK business in what we call our off-trade team. So that's anywhere that you buy a beer that you take to, I don't know, take home or take to the park, i.e. not a bar or a restaurant. I work in that part of our business and I look after our wholesale team. So think independent retailers, corner shops, that kind of thing. And essentially, I look after making sure that customers can get their hands on beer. And obviously, we make money as a business and it's commercially viable for us too.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Irini, would you mind to just sort of follow up sort of what the work you're doing?
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Irini. I'm from New York. I'm living in Belgium now. I am now the Corona Director for Europe, so marketing director. So that means essentially that I'm responsible for this brand. As Jack said, he makes money. We spend money. Just joking. No, we make money as well. But yeah, so that's my role now. I have a background actually in marketing as well. I joined the business as the head of category management, and then shifted back into marketing. I've been in the company for 5 years. Great to meet you guys.
So thank you so much. And last but not least, Keshav, would you like to introduce yourself and tell us about what
Hello.
you do?
Hello, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Keshav Banerjee. My pronoun is he, him. I'm originally from India. And at AB inBev, I'm responsible for packaging, procurement, and sustainability. So I lead all our different packaging sourcing initiatives, as well as our sustainability initiatives, working with external partners and internal partners all across Europe. I'm based in Belgium. Prior to ABI, I have a background in supply chain logistics, procurement, and have an MBA as well from an education point of view. Very happy to be here and look forward to the conversation today.
Excellent. Thank you so much to our panel for introducing yourselves. If I can stay with you, Keshav, as you mentioned, sort of coming into AB&I with a background in logistics, out of curiosity, how did you get into your current career at AB inBev? What was there a particular moment or what really made you want to apply?
So I was sitting in Singapore doing my MBA. I didn't apply to ABI, upfront, but I had some friends who did, heard from them, the stories around, the meritocracy, the culture that the company had, and the ambitious plans, and the powerful brands, which I already knew. So the brands were, was something which I was aware of, the culture, the people I wasn't, but I was very intrigued, very excited. And I had a couple of very interesting conversations with people working at ABI, late night Singapore, early morning or midday in Europe. And those were enough for me to be convinced to hop on a plane and in the middle of winter, leave sunny Singapore and be in Belgium, right? And so that's my journey. Getting into ABI, and I've been in the company since 2016, and it's been a very exciting and interesting experience, right? Working with some very, inspiring people. Irini and Jack are on the call, and the culture that we have, which is, agile, dynamic, and everything we're trying to do to be better, as a company.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Irini, what was your journey into AB inBev? What made you want to apply?
So I had actually a similar experience to Keshav. We've never spoken about that, Keshav, but maybe I'll start a little beforehand to make it a little bit more different. So before getting my MBA as well, I had been working for a creative consultancy. and we were doing innovation and marketing projects for some big apparel brands. And I loved what I was doing because it was dynamic. I was moving super fast. I loved the culture of my little company. But when it came to the idea of like consulting and working on a project, what I didn't like was the fact that you didn't actually have the ownership of the end result. So it made me think, okay, I want to actually be working on the other side, but how can I work on the other side for a company that, that has a similar culture, but, has the resources and the presence and the brands, for instance, to be able to do that. So when I got my MBA, I actually have a very different background. I studied art and Italian undergrad, so I actually needed my MBA. I needed to learn from an academic point of view. And when I got my MBA, I had started applying here and there. I didn't apply to ABI initially. I was actually at Kraft Heinz for a short-term contract, and that is where I learned about their culture, which is relatively similar to ABI. And then after that contract ended, I thought, let me actually look into ABI as well, because there were bits and pieces that I loved about Kraft Heinz that then made me really motivated to understand how ABI sort of flexes the agility, all of the things that Keshav was just talking about. And then from the first moment, first people I spoke to, the role I received, which is completely not my comfort zone, which is category management, very analytical. It was a super interesting opportunity, and just off the bat, the bet that I felt was placed on my head, and the sort of the confidence that was instilled in me, given the fact that I could, it was recognized that I'd be able to move and let's say enhance the culture myself, was awesome, and it's been the same since. I still feel it 5 years later.
Thank you so much for sharing that. Love it. Jack, was your journey very similar, very different? What's your story?
No, I'm the odd one out here. So I joined straight out of university. I'd actually done an internship with the company first. So AB InBev is the only place I've ever worked in terms of a proper job. So this is my full world view. But I joined one of our graduate programs. So we have 4 graduate programs in Europe. I joined what we call our Market Visionaries program. So that's a graduate program specializing in sales. So straight out of university, I headed to the mean streets of South London, where literally went door to door, working with our on-trade business. So bars, pubs, restaurants, making sure our brands were stocked, and working with a really dynamic, interesting team. It was a great start to sales at a very basic level, but also very hands-on. What's really cool about working for AB InBev is beer as a product people are really passionate and care about. Obviously, the art of sales, you can sell a lot of things, but people really care and love beer. So when you stop and talk to someone, people are interested in talking to you. And obviously, it's also an added benefit that at the end of the day, you can enjoy your product and toast a hard day's work too. So really nice. So that was a great foundation in sales. I then did some other moves within the company. I actually worked in our HR function for a while before moving back into the sales role I'm in now. And that's just an example, I think, of that everyone on this call has talked about, of the cross-functional moves that this company will do. We bet on people and attitude and work ethic rather than experience or CVs. So there's lots of opportunity to if you would say, I want to do this, I want to do that, the company will take a bet on you, and there's lots of opportunities to take them.
Excellent, thank you. Not that this is a test, I promise, but so a lot of people may, whether or not they've heard of AB InBev, it's highly likely they've probably heard of the brands that AB InBev is behind. And Jack, I just wonder if you if you can sort of share some of those brands, just for people that maybe will be familiar with those, and more so if that's possible.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're quite proud in the fact that we sell every 4th beer that's consumed in the world. So if you ask me to name all of our brands, I wouldn't stand a chance. But in Europe, lots of big brands. So our 3 global brands are nicely demonstrated behind Irene at the moment. So Budweiser, Stella Artois, and Corona. And those are our global brands that we scale across lots of markets globally. And they're very recognizable and international. On top of that, we have lots of local brands that might be specific to certain regions or certain companies. So think of Camden Town in the UK, Beck's, Leff, Hoegaarden, Pacifico, Modelo, lots and lots of brands that are specific in markets, and then some that are only specific to certain countries. For example, think Jupiler in Belgium, which is a massive beer brand in Belgium. So a huge portfolio, and we really have something for everyone. However, we're not just a beer company. We also do products other than beer. So we sell gin in the UK, bathtub gin, if you've had it. And we also are currently in Europe looking at seltzers. So seltzers are alcoholic sparkling water, which obviously have a much lower calorie profile for people who might not be beer drinkers. So we want to make sure we can cater to a whole range of consumption occasions.
Excellent, thank you. So I apologize. I appreciate. Can you list every part of the business? Is probably quite.
That was one of my interview questions when I joined. So bringing back memories.
Well, I can only apologize for putting you on the spot there, but thank you for that. I'm very much appreciate it. Before we move on, I'm very, very interested. Keshav, you talked about the very meritocratic culture at AB InBev, and I just wondered if you could talk maybe a little bit more about that and what your experience of that has been.
Yeah, I think I'll try and give you some more, insights on my own career and also the privilege that I have to lead a team. So I'm privileged to lead a team of, people in 3 different locations with 10 different nationalities, right? That's what brings us together. And while we are a very large global organization, we operate, and serve the communities where we are based in. So in many ways, beer is very local, right? Jack mentioned Camden as an example. In terms of meritocracy, I've been fortunate to experience it firsthand. I've been in the company since 2016, and this is the 3rd role that I'm doing, right? And it's been at different parts of the organization while it's been in the supply chain procurement side. So I've been fortunate to experience it firsthand, right? And that's also a responsibility that we have as an organization and as leaders, that we develop teams, develop people better than ourselves. So that's the mindset that we have. And that's something that, I'm very passionate about. So earlier this week, I had good fortune of someone in my team making it to, the next level of being a band 4 or, senior leader in the company. And these are journeys that it's for the individual, but also journeys that we feel, proud and privileged to be a part of, as we grow our own leadership capabilities as well. So meritocracy in ABI is in action, because it's something that we live, breathe, not just in our, DNA or what's on the wall, but in action, something that we are, actively, encouraged to do, but also measured on. So meritocracy is very much part of our DNA. And I think that's something that makes us special, because at the end, we are a large beer organization amongst others, but people are the secret sauce as well.
I think also to complement that, George, if I may, I've had experience in a couple of other companies. I've never, ever experienced what we do in ABI, in that we spend a lot of time talking about people and their development, a lot. And it's awesome. And so when we talk meritocracy, it's really actually structured with our people processes, and the way in which we talk about potential, as Jack referenced to before. As leaders, and also similar to what Keshav said, it's really a privilege to be part of, and to see your teams flourish is the best. So yeah, I would say it's an inordinate amount of my time that I spend on as a leader, and similar to these guys as well. So yeah, just wanted to mention that.
Of course, thank you so much. The only I asked mostly because I can always remember every time I've met AB InBev staff, every time I've worked with AB InBev staff, meritocracy is something that comes up very, very early on in the conversation. I'm always hearing about how, as you said, it's a people sort of led business. So it's just fascinating to hear the levels at which that play out. So thank you so much for sharing that. Really, really grateful. To move on then, I guess to look more, at the work that you're doing. If I guess I'll start with you, Jack, if that's all right, just to find out a little bit more about your office life at AB InBev, sort of before the pandemic, and how that's sort of changed since this is all kicked off, and maybe how, what's happening now, things are starting to reopen slightly. What's your office life like?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's quite hard to look back at pre-pandemic life. That's casting our eyes back quite a long way now. But we have a really vibrant office. So We've talked about having, our culture, our company culture is super strong. And if you walk into the London office or really any AB InBev office globally, you'll get the same culture. So that, even when I've worked abroad or in other European markets, you get that really nice, oh, I'm home feeling as soon as you walk in the door, because you recognize the traits and behaviors and way people work. That's a really nice, reassuring thing. So I work in our London office, which is actually modeled nicely behind me. Wasn't planned, I promise. So it's a great office, new space in the center of London, and it's all about collaboration. So people coming in to collaborate, to work, to share ideas. And we also actually have a bar, which is the image you can see behind me, on our 8th floor. So Thursday evening is open bar, which is a great way to connect with the products that we love, but also meet new people, network, discover people that you might not have talked to before, which is really positive. So we use our offices really as a space for collaboration, which has probably been the transition post-pandemic. We're lucky in the UK that because of restrictions, our office is open to 100% capacity. So I'm going in 3 or 4 times a week, which is awesome. However, I know obviously with coronavirus being the ever-present threat, other markets have slightly different rules. But we're always going to be a company where there's going to be some element of office work, because we believe collaboration and people coming together is really important for innovation and sharing of ideas.
Excellent. Thank you very much for sharing that. Irini, is this a sort of similar situation for you?
Yeah, well, I have a slight variation in that I was on maternity leave for most of the pandemic. So coming back is just coming back with like lots of other variables, let's say. But yeah, I used to work in the London office. I was traveling in and out of the Milan office before. And now I've just moved to Belgium, as I mentioned. I would say I would agree with Jack. I mean, there's just the office is definitely, especially when you've got people from so many different places that have descended upon Belgium. The office really is like a place where everyone comes together, and the collaboration is real. It's, and I will say, like, coming back after mat leave, in a sort of post-ish pandemic way, it made things a lot easier. I don't know how it would have been to like just all of a sudden just turn my laptop on again, So I think that's made things really, really nice.
And just to add, right, I think our offices are open. So it's not like someone sitting in a cabin. It's an open office, open spaces to collaborate, right? Along with the culture, yes, the open bar is also something across our offices on a Thursday evening, for instance. That's the beauty of being in a beer company. I work in Belgium, in Leuven. And you leave I'm in the office right now, but people work flexibly, right? We offer the flexibility during COVID specifically. And it's a privilege to work, in such an office. And you step out across the road, you have the Stella Artois brewery. So Leuven is the home of Stella, this much loved global brand. And often you just, smell the beer being prepared as you walk out of the office. So couldn't ask for more in that sense.
Excellent, thank you. Out of curiosity, I said, Irini, I don't know if you're best placed to answer this, but with sort of questions like maternity leave, etc., what is sort of company policy towards that? If I'm asking, I'm always sort of curious to hear how that differs between sort of companies and departments.
Yeah, so I mean, of course, it varies by country, but actually we've just made some exciting announcements in that for the primarily the Belgians. And any market where it's less than this policy, they've just announced a new policy where it's 26 weeks paid for the primary caregiver. And then I think for me, the really exciting part when I heard this was then I believe it's another additional 2 months of 100% pay, but only 70% work. So it's to help people ease back in. And really, when I think about my transition that I was just mentioning back to working, I would say that like, this sort of worry about, how you're going to manage everything, how you're going to come back to being productive when you've got like a new set of things on your brain, is definitely something to be thinking about. And so this literally was announced, I think, 2 weeks after I joined back again. So I was super happy to hear that. I think it's a really big step up. And what I also like about it is that it's very inclusive, right? It's assuming primary caregiver. I believe the family decides who that is. And then it's also inclusive in the way that it's not, I don't know how to properly say this, but growing families in many ways, right? It's not just like the traditional way of, the mom giving birth. So I think it's super cool and a big step up for our company.
Fantastic. Oh, I love it. Ooh. It's such a nice thing, is to see when a company understands this, as you're right, sort of investing in its staff in that way of saying, look, it's about stepping yourself back into work rather than boom, straight back in, find your productivity. So no, that's fantastic to hear. Love it. I guess so to look a little bit more at how staff are supported at AB InBev, particularly sort of LGBTQ plus staff. I wanted, Jack, if you're able to tell us a little bit about the LGBTQ plus network at AB InBev.
Yes, so we have lots of, we call them business resource groups. So they cover lots of different areas, and we have a whole plethora across different countries, and they vary slightly depending on the country. But I'll talk as a UK specific example because that's the one I'm most familiar with. So we have our Proud network. So there's a network of LGBTQ plus people and their allies. Actually, a lot of allies of people that want to get involved, which is amazing. So we meet monthly, do activities, take part in campaigns and lobby the business. But we also run events, education, pride events, to really make sure that we're offering education to the business. And it's also a great informal support group of peers. Sometimes if you have a question, rather than going to HR, you might be more comfortable speaking to someone from the group. Everyone has a rainbow lanyard, so easily identifiable in the office, which is pretty classic. But it's a really awesome group that really creates a sense of belonging and a welcoming environment for anyone. And yeah, there's no questions asked. Anyone can join, sign up, get involved. And we're seeing the network grow, and hopefully we'll see it continue to grow in the future. So that's the UK, but there are also similar networks in other markets as well. So lots of places to be able to get stuck in should you want to.
Excellent. Thank you so much, sir. And how, I guess then, how does the network approach things like sort of Pride Month, LGBT History Month, etc.? What kind of sort of work do they get up to during those sort of times?
So we've done loads of stuff, from having events in the party in the office, which can be a bit more of a party atmosphere. Just really quite hard hitting stuff around discrimination. We did an amazing event one Pride year where we invited representatives from 12 charities that covered a whole range of the LGBTQ plus spectrum, which was really informative. Even for me, sitting there, who's probably more clued in on these matters than most people, learned a huge amount. But again, in a really open, inclusive space. But I think the highlight was probably when, as Budweiser, I think you're actually sporting one of our cups, George, when we sponsored London Pride. So we did a campaign called Fly the Flag, which is all about all the different parts of the LGBTQ plus spectrum. We did that. We were a headline sponsor and loads of activities around that. And that was really amazing. And we also managed to use the power of our brand, so Budweiser, the world's biggest beer brand, to push the message and education. So that was something really powerful because it was something that we started as the employee network, but then encompassed both the company, but then also our brand. So really went full circle.
If I can press the unmute button, that will help. Thank you so much. That's fantastic. You are absolutely correct. I sat down and then realized that it is indeed, it's one of the Budweiser cups that I picked up at Pride. Not intentional product placement, I promise. But so it was, well, yeah, no, it is. I have, from myself, sort of experience of seeing, having seen AB InBev at Pride, but also seeing the other sort of bits and pieces getting up to. That's fantastic. I guess then, not as a opinion question on sort of LGBT support, but just out of curiosity, I appreciate you said this was your first and only sort of quote unquote proper job coming straight from school, as it were. But what to you do you think is the importance of having that LGBT network there in the workplace?
I think it's a few things. So I think one, it's a really clear and open statement from the business that they support LGBTQ plus employees. So we have signage around the office, guidance for where people to go. So if people have questions or are unsure or doubts or feel uncomfortable, yes, there's a big group of people who'll happily welcome them. But in a less intimidating setting, the signposting and guidance that you can get, which I think is just a really obvious open statement that we are valued as employees. I think the other thing is just the company. I mean, I've been here 5 years, worked in 2 countries, lots of different functions, and never have I had anything that I could even begin to complain about. From the moment I arrived in the company to now, it's been the most lovely, welcoming, inclusive environment. We're a business that's really ambitious. We push hard, we work hard. But at the same time, we all value and respect each other, even when there is sometimes pressure, which is a really nice thing. And, I can only comment on my journey, but, I give it 10 out of 10, 100%. There's nothing that I'd even raise the flag at, truth be told, which is really nice because, as I'm sure you know, not everyone has that story at their company. So it's really nice that, mine's been a positive experience.
Thank you so much for sharing that. It's so nice to hear, glowing recommendation, but it's just nice to hear about LGBT staff sort of being supported, particularly at a time when it's so important that we have the ability to bring our whole selves to work. So thank you so much for that, Jack. I appreciate the slightly intensive grilling questions there.
No problem.
To bring it out then, I guess, to the wider group, to look at sort of graduate recruitment now, and sort of for our attendees who may be watching today and see this, actually, I want to start my career at AB InBev. I wondered if any of you had I guess to start us off, if there was any advice you would have for those graduates. Keshav, I don't know if I can come to you first, if that's right. Any sort of advice or tips you'd give to graduates in that situation?
I think the first Medina just posted would be to check out, the opportunities that we have, the programs itself. So get to know us better, so do the research. I think some of the points that, we discussed, we're a company of owners. So it's, very true to how we are. We're a global company, but we're a people business in many ways. And one statement that summarizes it for us, right? We talk about bringing people together for a better world, right? And this statement, while simple, is quite deep in different ways. So there's an element of, it starts with bringing people together, right? Which I think is very appropriate for the conversation we're having today, and for a better world, right? So, and we happen to sell beer as well, right? So get to know us better through the programs we have, through the people that are here. So we are happy to take questions later on as well. Get to know that, it's a good place to build a career. I think the 3 people here today from ABI have 3 different career journeys. They're in 3 different parts of the organization and very, very different backgrounds. And that's not 3 because we are here. I think it's representative of how ABI is and what we want to do, right? So we want to be here for the next 100 years, having brands that people enjoy and, brands that build the experience with the consumers. So if you want to be part of that journey, part of that process, build a career, do exciting things, different things, be in a large organization, yet entrepreneurial, where no 2 days are the same. And quite frankly, I mean it, because I worked for another large organization prior to this for many years. I've worked across, the last 15 years across 2 different continents, 4 different countries. And this is different, right? It's different in many ways. I enjoy it. I thrive on it, right? The energy that I also have around me, right? Of people that you work with, that you work, alongside. And that's quite, refreshing and inspiring, right? So yes, days could be long. You are working hard. So, this is not it's hard work, but it's also fun. And Thursday evening, you had a long day, enjoy a beer with your friends, colleagues. And yes, many of your colleagues are your friends at the end of the day, and that makes it all the worth it. So check out our opportunities, talk to people, and I encourage you all to be part of the conversation and look for opportunities in ABI.
Thank you so much. That's only wonderful little bits of wisdom. I appreciate it very much, Keshav. Thank you. Irini, said any tips, advice that you would give?
Sure. So I think on top of what Keshav said, maybe as you're talking to people from ABI, like really understanding the culture is very, very important. And the truth is, maybe I'm not supposed to say this, but I don't think ABI is for everyone, right? I think ABI, we're super diverse in many ways, but I would say one thing that is probably, stringing along for, I would say, a lot of people is kind of the motivation that keeps them excited at the company. And so, that might be different for for many people, and that might not be the case for some, and then it's not for you. But I would say that's actually like the magic dust for this company too. So when you're getting to know people as you're going through the process, once you've decided that you're interested, really ask questions about like the day-to-day, which by the way doesn't exist, a day-to-day, about challenges, then and how they've overcome them, and things that get examples of how people have been able to exhibit entrepreneurial skills and such a huge company. Really get to know some of those examples, because I think they'll be, I don't know, maybe I'm a bit of a cynic, but when I was going through recruitment, when I was at business school, there were a lot of companies that came over and said, I have these 10 principles or these 5 principles, and we have them on the wall and blah, 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 blah. So everyone said that. But I really believe that this company lives and breathes the culture that we talk about. And so get to know those tangible examples. And I think they will either get you really excited for more, or maybe they'll make you think maybe it's not for me. So do that as much as possible. That's what I would really recommend.
Thank you so much. And just over you quickly, because you really sort of piqued my interest there when you mentioned about the idea that there's no such thing as a day-to-day. Would you, I don't know if you're able to elaborate on that point a little bit more. Is it perhaps just the nature of the work that you're doing, or what in your mind it makes up the sort of lack of quote day-to-day, as it were?
I'm giggling because I'm on several calls a day with Keshav for several things that we're managing at the moment that are leading to my conclusion this way. So I think the reason for that is definitely the accountability that you hold in your role. So like the ownership. So as an example, I'm not in supply, right? I'm not in logistics. But if there's a supply or logistics problem with my brand, even though I'm marketing director, I get stuck in, and I will ultimately be, the one that people ask about that, and I'm responsible. So that doesn't mean that, so, and then that's one example. Then there's, the fact that at this company we're never satisfied, right? So, okay, I just ran an awesome campaign. It did brilliantly in the UK. Then the natural campaign for Corona, we're just getting our results back. Doesn't mean that we're going to just say, okay, great, next year we're going to do the same. No way. You would never do that. I know that other companies, maybe they would look for more consistency and repeat as they did the year before. That would never happen at ABI. So even though you've got potentially like a playbook for a success, you're always thinking about how you can improve. And that excites me, that excites my team. It makes you work with very many different teams in the company that you wouldn't have expected to. So yeah, I think that's a decent reflection of my last month back at work. And it's true, it's not exceptional.
Thank you so much. That I appreciate that was not nitpicking, but it's just fascinating to see that breakdown, and that means it.
It's important because you can say it and then it can mean nothing, right? But we all have examples of that, for sure.
Thank you so much for sharing that. And Jack, I mean, 2 very tough acts to follow, but I'm sure you can. Out of curiosity, any advice you give to sort of our graduates attending, or just LGBT graduates in general looking to come into this line of work?
So I think Irini and Kesh have pretty much nailed it in terms of culture. It's I know how our assessments work from the back end, and our culture is a super important part of it, which is important, right? Because as Irini says, it's not just us finding someone that we like; they also need to like us back. Otherwise, no one's going to be happy. So really look at that and say, if this is me, great. But if not, that's fine, right? That we're all different and operate in different ways. I think for me, specifically from an LGBT perspective, bring your whole self to work, right? Like, you don't need to play someone or be someone you're not. Just be really unashamedly, authentically you when you rock up. Because I've sat in a lot of panels, I think that the other guys on the call probably have too. And it's really obvious when someone, doesn't feel comfortable in their skin or is trying to hold something back. And we love the diversity and the range of people we get to meet. That's what makes working in graduate recruitment and doing those assessment centers, etc., really enjoyable, because you can really get to meet such an interesting range of people. And that's what we want to replicate inside the company too. So, be unashamedly, authentically you, and bring your whole self to the interview. Get to know our culture, and I'm sure you'll do absolutely fine.
Excellent. Thank you so much, sir. I must say a very big good afternoon, and thank you to Romanie for joining us this afternoon as well. I appreciate you being here this afternoon. We're just talking about our advice and tips that we give to graduates looking to join AB InBev. But just before we get started, do you mind just introducing yourself to our audience and telling them a little bit about the work that you do?
Yeah, with pleasure. Sorry to be late. I'm wearing one of the safety vests of our breweries. I had to arrive in one of our breweries for an event that we're doing with stakeholders, and guess what? Traffic was awful, so I'm a bit late. Sorry for that. So I'm Romanie. I'm 6 years in the company in AB InBev, and I lead what we call our corporate affairs and legal department for one of our business units, which is Belgium, Netherlands, Luxembourg, and France. I have done various roles in the company. I'm a lawyer by training, but actually I've done much more than just the core legal work here at ABI, and I think that is actually one of the things that I think are that's kind of what determines ABI for me. You enter, the company doing one thing, and you learn so many other things along the way, and I think that's definitely been the case for me. I think on the personal level, I'm a mom of 2 young kids, so I'm always looking for that balance in life, which is so important for working parents. And I like to be vocal about that, and to kind of speak to my colleagues and share best practices, because I think that's important. I'm a Belgian national, and yeah, that's about it. I don't know if I forgot anything, George.
No worries, that's excellent, thank you. And out of curiosity, I guess, and I appreciate a little bit on the spot for you, but out of curiosity, if you had to give any immediate advice to any of our attendees today about advice just sort of coming into AB InBev, or if they want to apply for AB InBev, is there any particular advice that you give?
Now it is a test if I'm going to say anything cliche that one of my colleagues will already have said, so I'm going to apologize in advance. So it is going to be cliche what I'm going to say, but I think it's very true. I think being yourself is super important. Don't try to be another person that you are. I think we're also here because today we're talking about diversity and inclusion, and I think the commitment in our company is so big that it's really appreciated, and I think also important that you try to be yourself. I think more on the practical level, I think when you're applying for AB InBev, take a genuine interest in our company, in our business. I recruit often for legal and corporate affairs roles, which are actually not like the core of our company, right? Our goal of our company is to sell beer and to produce it, and we're a bit of a support function. We help with the legal framework, we help with lobbying, communication, but I ask applicants about, if you were our CEO, what would your strategy be? Because it's maybe a tough question, and I'm not asking for a right answer, but for me, it's a way to test if people are really kind of taking this interest in our company. And I think that's interesting. There's a lot out there, so read. And I think at ABI, we also like curious people. So I think when you come to an interview or when you're entering an application process, think about questions that you have. And it's not just to kind of show that you're kind of interesting. I think it's also a good occasion to ask the questions that are also mattering to you to join a company, because I see an application program as a two-way process, right? If I would apply at a company, I would actually want to know if the company is something for me. So that's a little bit how what my advice would be.
Excellent. Thank you so much for sharing that. And I said it's also, that sort of nice idea that, it is about making sure that you're going and you're having questions and things like that to make sure you are getting the most through it. Thank you so much for that. To talk a little bit more about recruitment then, I don't know which one of you feels best placed to take this question, but out of curiosity, would one of you be able to just tell us about what sort of opportunities exist for undergraduates and graduates at AB InBev? I don't know if one of you two wants to take that.
Do you want me to go?
Certainly,
Jack. So cool. So we have 4 graduate programs within Europe. So covering a whole range of things, and really that there is an option for everyone. So we have our global management trainee program, which is a general management program. So we'll spend some time in our breweries, like Romanie is at the moment, but also our sales and commercial organizations. So, if you're not sure what part of our company you want to work in, that's a great program because it kind of opens the doors and you can go and see what you want before finally making a decision. So you have a bit of flexibility. But if you already have an idea of what you want to do, whether you want to take a supply or logistics path or a commercial path, we have another 2 programs. So the program that I did was the Market Visionaries program, which is essentially a graduate program in sales, and leads neatly into our commercial organization. So areas like sales, marketing, and the commercial area of our business. And then on the opposite side, we have our supply management trainee program, which you guessed it, looks at our supply organization, but also supply, logistics, forecasting, everything that we need to do to take from grain to get a bottle of beer on a shelf. You'll be involved in that whole logistics and value chain, which is really interesting. And then the final program that we have is a fast track leadership program, which is based at our digital hub in Prague, where we have loads of our European processes that are organized. So our team in Prague work across borders, across markets, globally, internationally, to make sure that our beer gets in the right place. So, for example, in my sales role, I literally couldn't do my role without the Prague team. So there you get to experience lots of different areas of our business doing a rotational program, all from a central hub. So loads of different options. And if you want more details, again, sounds a bit cliche, check out the website, because I probably haven't done it justice. And there are stories from graduates who will tell you in their own words much better than I have.
Fantastic, thank you for that. And what was the application process like, if you can remember it at all?
Yes, like yesterday. So it's initially an online application, where you basically say you want to join the company. We then have some online tests, some psychometric tests that look at both aptitude, but also our culture, which you will have got out as a theme from today. It's super important with our company. We then have a video interview where you'll be asked to answer some questions. We then have an assessment center. Previously, pre-COVID, this used to be based in Leuven, which was awesome because you got lots of people from all over the world, all over Europe, descending on Leuven. Now, unfortunately, in the world we live in, at the moment, it is digital, so it's an online assessment center. And then the final stage after that is a final interview with our senior leaders. So these are the most senior leaders in our business. And what's awesome is, it's a lot of time investment from their side, but that just shows how important talent is for our business, that they're willing to invest that time, because our graduates are the future leaders of tomorrow. So it's about squaring that circle and bringing it full circle.
Fantastic, thank you. I guess my follow-up question then, for all of you, is out of curiosity, if there's anything you wished you'd known going into your application, what would it be? Irini, do you mind if I come to you first? I appreciate this is a very on the spot question. If there's any particular thing that you wish you'd known, do you know what that would be?
I guess it's similar to what I mentioned, like in my advice earlier. So, but obviously, if the more I would have known about real examples of the things that have attracted me to the company, probably the earlier I would have applied. So really trying to glean out some of these tangible stories and tangible examples of the things that could make you really excited and get you to jump out of bed every day. I think makes, well, one, help you understand if that's the way for you, and two, will make you seem, you'll come off as much more authentic, right? When you're talking about the company with whoever you're interviewing. So I would say that could really help when you're in the way that you're discussing your motivation to join ABI.
Excellent, thank you so much, Sarah. I appreciate a very left field question, but I'm very grateful. Okay. Thank you. Romanie, I don't know if you wanted to say anything you wish you'd known going into your application process.
I think it also goes back to my earlier. I am unmuted, right? It goes back to my earlier advice as well a little bit. Is let me say it differently. I'm actually sometimes impressed by how much people kind of jump into it and jump into the exercises, etc. And I think when I was applying, actually, I didn't apply for one of the talent programs. I applied directly within the company, which doesn't mean you should apply. Go for the talent programs. You learn so much. So go for those if you can. I think is to really throw yourself in there, right? To kind of be as expressive as you can, to really not be kind of afraid or shy. Because I think it can be, it can be a bit overwhelming, maybe, the whole interview process, the fact that in the final stage you're in front of these senior leaders, and it can all be really stressful. So what I guess I would have wanted to know is that it's completely fine to be actually as relaxed as possible about it, and to just kind of go, like entering this tunnel, jumping on that train, and trying to be as outgoing as possible.
Thank you so much for that. Keshav, any thoughts on things you wish you'd know?
Definitely different perspectives. So, I've been fortunate to be part of these recruitment events, right? Interviewing different trainees, future trainees, future leaders over the years now. And what stands out are people who are, comfortable being uncomfortable sometimes, people who, as Romanie said, immerse themselves into the day. It's a long day, right? Be authentic about yourself, right? Because the different questions, and if you're trying to, say the right thing, you'll be found out. And quite frankly, we want to hear about you, who you are, what your journey, what you want to do, your dreams, quite frankly, right? So I think people who are authentic in that sense, people who are comfortable, people who are also ambitious. So in the company, we have a big focus on dream big in that sense, because it takes the same amount of energy to dream big or dream small. So dream big, so ambition, drive, energy, passion, these attributes, don't be afraid or don't, be uncomfortable about it. So be yourself in that sense. I think that's a good motto to have. And at the end, try and enjoy the process, because, you would meet, interact with different, people in that journey. And if you make the most of it, it would be a win-win for everyone. So that would be, some suggestions I would have, or reflections.
Thank you so much. I do like that idea. Dream big. Love it. And Jack has said, last but not least, of course, Jack, any sort of things you'd wish you'd known going into it?
I think very similar to the guys. I think just as soon as you join the company, you become a lot more aware. I always say, particularly once you've worked in the company, you'll never look at a bar or a supermarket the same again. So good advice is just, walk down the beer aisle or go to a pub and just look at, why are some beers priced this? Why is that beer you doing a marketing campaign? So you can bring that knowledge and share it in the interview. And even if you don't have a fully formed idea, as Romanie said, ask questions. We're super curious. Have a starting point that you can join questions. But overall, when you go into the process, believe in yourself. You've got this. Relax. Well, we're a super informal company, as you can see from all of us. So don't get too stressed about it. And I'm sure you'll all do great.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Before I take some questions from our audience and to our attendees, if you have any questions, please feel free to put them down in the Q&A box, and we'll come to those at the end. But I'm just quite interested to learn, so we touched a little bit on Pride Networks, but I kind of want to open that up a little bit. So more diversity and inclusion in general at AB InBev is said as intersectionality is a very important thing, for companies, for individuals, etc. So I'm keen to kind of find out a little bit more about that. And so I guess, if I can come to you, Keshav, if that's all right, just to sort of, I guess, find out more about what sort of initiatives are going on to build inclusive cultures at AB InBev. I don't know if you have any.
So I think there's a lot of focus on the topic, is at all levels of the organization for us to live and breathe diversity and inclusion. I think on diversity, the metrics are more measurable in terms of the different nationalities that we have, the different roles that we have from male and female talents growing, but also the conversation on inclusiveness, being authentic, bringing your authentic self to work, that's increasing. And that's around different places of our workplace. right? So that's, having an emotional workplace where you're able to, ensure psychological safety is part of that conversation. Having a physical workplace where our facilities are inclusive, accessible, as Jack mentioned, for people with different gender, disabilities, religion, orientation requirements in that sense. So the physical workplace for sure. Having a workplace which is purposeful, right? Where, we are listening, learning as the workplace is evolving and making those changes to make ourselves, our colleagues, feel more engaged, more comfortable. I think that's also, something that we're doing. And these are the insights that we receive from, different colleagues who work. And last but not the least, in the current environment, a digital workplace, right? So I think this is more end to end. So how can we leverage data technology to be more inclusive in how we interact, how we collaborate? Because collaboration is a key part of what makes us successful. So these are, it could be simple things as, just captioning, subtitles, making people know who you are, starts there, and then just being, etiquettes around a digital workplace as well. So there's a lot of focus in having an inclusive workplace end to end, both in the digital and the physical world. And that makes me, quite proud to be part of that journey that we're having in the company.
Excellent. Thank you so much. It's really, I said, it's nice to hear it sort of put in, to hear companies and that actual commitment to it. It's not just a game of box ticking, as so often, companies are accused, and it is genuinely real commitments. And so, no, I'm so glad to hear that. Thank you. Out of curiosity on those commitments, said Irini, I know said you're sort of working within marketing. What sort of commitments how do these commitments sort of appear across the business? What sort of commitments for diversity and inclusion are you working towards?
Well, I'll talk to the let's say consumer facing side, because it's super important, right? Like, we're a consumer goods company. Beer is a huge part of culture, and we will fail if we don't reflect the values of our consumers, right? So it's not like it's a very pragmatic thing too. It's something we should be living and breathing it within our own company, as well as with the way we portray ourselves and continue to get people to love our beers. So some of the things that we are doing, well, one, we have a creative council, and then within that creative council, we have an agency that we work with that helps make sure that, and we do it ourselves, right? But I like the fact that we formalized it this way. Helps make sure that our everything we put out to consumers is inclusive indeed. We look at casting, for instance. If you think about kind of traditional beer communications of the past, like, it's kind of shocking sometimes. And I'm not saying that we're there and we don't have to make like huge changes, but it's definitely something that we have to be keeping top of mind, because we are a huge part of culture, and it would be not only offensive, but insulting if we're not able to accurately portray the people that love us so much. So there is definitely something to that. I think it's really important to make sure that's a big part of the conversation when we're working with creative agencies, media agencies. It's when we're talking about sort of like innovative channels. Well, does this make sense for the people that we're trying to speak to? So it's definitely a huge part of the planning process now, which maybe I'm naive to say that I would like to think that this is something that we and our teams would have been doing anyway, but I do think there's definite value. Formalizing it shows how important it is with our company.
Excellent. Thank you so much for sharing that. I'm just very conscious of time, so but still just keen to hear as much as possible. Romanie, I know you sit on the D&I Council at AB InBev. What does that look? So what sort of work are you doing in that regard for diversity and inclusion?
So yeah, it's indeed about owning the D&I strategy for full European operations, and we are a team, a diverse team, trying to work on that. And as we said, indeed, our strategy is not just to look at ourselves; it's to look at, as Irini explained, how we are doing it commercially, and it's one of the things that Keshav is also involved in, right? Is on the suppliers, how we deal with suppliers, and it's really it's a cross-functional effort. We believe a lot in doing cross-functional things, not just having our people team being, or HR team, right, being an owner of diversity. We believe that if all functions together, if all the brilliant people, and we have a lot of brilliant people in our company, do this together and come with initiatives, then we're going to get forward. So how does the D&I Council work? Is we meet every month, and projects are presented, and we discuss them, and we look at benchmarking, etc. For some of you who haven't, so you've all seen it probably, or you haven't, is that yesterday we launched a new parental leave policy, which is a very extensive policy going above and beyond a lot of regimes in European countries. So, giving 6 months for sure, full paid, which is a major step up. And this is one of the things that we discussed in the D&I Council. And we did it really based on a benchmarking. We did it also based on listening sessions with our employees. So it's a very professional approach to D&I, looking at ourselves, looking at our commercial way, looking even at our full value chain. Are the suppliers that we buy from diverse? Are the customers that we work from having a commitment on diversity and inclusion? For instance, if a female salesperson goes to a bar and gets some not so D&I comments, diverse and inclusive comments, what can we do as a company? And it's one thing I want to add on that is because, ABMF is a large company, right? And sometimes the large companies are a bit like, it's a large company, etc. And there's always a bit of an evil sauce to it. And I see this really shifting. I see this changing to a huge company having huge impact and using that impact for good. And I think that's what our D&I Council is all about, is to see what our impact is, what is the ecosystem in which we operate, and how can we make a difference.
Excellent. Thank you so much for that. I'm very conscious of time, so I'm going to take some of our Q&A questions now. Let's see. Will that be an answer for one? All right, okay. So Shorsha Duffy asks, AB InBev has offices around the world. Is there any support to relocate within the company? I don't know if any one of you particularly wants to take that question.
I can, definitely. I think all of us actually have relocated to different offices already. So yeah, there's always opportunities. Like it comes down to meritocracy again. So if you're the right person for the role and you apply, more than often you'll be moved there. So, but I will say that because we do talk a lot about career paths and people development, there will always be a point of view on if a role, like it's rarely one person in a team saying, I'm going to apply for this, and then no one knows, and it's going to be an individual mission. It's not like that. There's a lot of input. It's important that the individual takes the initiative for sure, but because we are so we spend so much time talking about development, we also talk a lot about paths, right? So maybe if I want to go to global tomorrow, to work on the brand from the global point of view, that might not be the right next move for me. And maybe I need to, flex in another skill set first. And that might be the way that I'm advised. So I will say that sort of trumps often like the location preference.
Excellent. Thank you. And just as we come to our last question then, which asks, if you were to use one word to describe AB InBev's culture, what would it be? Jack, could I come to you first?
Oh, that's a toughie. I'd say dynamic. Dynamic. No day's ever the same.
Love it. Keshav, your one word?
Meritocracy. I started with that, I'll end with that. I think that's true to who we are.
Love it. Oh, love a throwback. Irini, your one word.
I don't know why this is stuck in my head, but I would say that we're hungry, we're eager.
Fantastic. And finally, Romanie, your one word to describe culture at AB.
Ownership.
Love it. Well, thank you very, very much to our panel this afternoon. It's been really, really fantastic to talk to all of you and hear your stories and the work you're doing. And we are very, very grateful for having you. And thank you very much. And thank you to Medina, who's been here as well, who's helped us set this all up. So we're very, very grateful to have had you this afternoon. But yes, indeed, this is not the end. As said, if you're watching this live, hello. There will probably be some links coming out after this, so you can find out more about opportunities at AB InBev. If you're watching this, watching the recording, there should hopefully be links just below. But yes, I have been George Wright. As said, I'm the head of social media here at myGwork. Thank you very much to our panelists. Thank you very much to those of you who have joined us, and we'll see you all next time. Goodbye.